the sandhills without fire is a lot like the rainforest without water. It's developed with fire and is completely dependent on fire. Before European settlement, the fires were caused mainly by lightning, and they would go with the wind and become very hot, and that way they could cross drainages and be more complete in their burn. But because we have things that we don't want to burn, we have Fort Bragg divided into management blocks, and we try to burn those blocks on a 3-year average.
So this is a controlled burn we're doing today. We have approximately 161,000 acres, and we burn approximately a third a year. My name is Rod Fleming. I'm Chief at Forestry here at Fort Bragg. We burn for multiple objectives: forest management, endangered species management, the health of the ecosystem, fuel reduction control to control wildfires, and also military. I mean, that's the reason we're here is to support the soldier and what they do and how they train. The nature of the training and what the Army does here requires a lot of land, and we're required by law to manage it, to manage its natural resources. We develop our annual burn plan before we implement any burns. So any given day we decide based on a variety of variables. We vet it through range control that determines what areas are going to be used for military training that day and whether we can or cannot burn. And we come out, we set a baseline, a backing fire like you see here, to establish a baseline to make sure the fire is controlled, that we're getting the fire behavior to meet our objectives. The bark on the longleaf pine is thick and it withstands fire, it doesn't hurt the tree. Historically, there was approximately 90 million acres of longleaf pine wiregrass ecosystem that was from Virginia all the way to Texas. And through logging, turpentining, a lot of that acreage has been decimated. There's not a lot of contiguous large longleaf stands still around the country in the southeast, original range. So here on Bragg, it's just like stepping back in time of what that ecosystem looked like.
Well, we're burning the woods to promote the longleaf pine ecosystem, and our job in particular is with rare and endangered species and other native species that are adapted to this ecosystem. And we know historically that there was a high frequency, low intensity regime of fire, and we're trying to mimic that. Burning can be very dangerous, and that's why we call them controlled burns, and people have a lot of training and experience to do this work. But it is the only way to maintain the habitat. And we also know that if you do not have controlled burns, eventually you will have wildfires, and you see it across the country, and those are typically more catastrophic. By burning more frequently, we're actually preventing wildfires that would cause more harm to the landscape and possibly soldiers that are training.
The Venus flytrap in particular requires fire. This one would like to have annual fire, which is very hard to achieve. Sometimes they'll disappear when an area becomes fire suppressed. The vegetation gets too thick for it to grow. The Venus flytrap has a role in the ecosystem. The Venus flytrap's contribution might not be great, but it's best to think of the ecosystem as a team where each player has a role. And so even though we don't know what all these roles are, and it's simply because it's very expensive to study every aspect of each of the 1,200 plants that are on Fort Bragg, it takes these 1,200 plants to make up the ecosystem that we have.
Fort Bragg's just a unique place. The guys that are out here burning, they work hard to do it. The biologists that are out here to manage the species, they do it in a passion, but they also do it to support our soldiers.